And I always felt like you couldn't talk about rednecks unless you are one, and I are one. You know what? Growing up, I didn't know that's what I was, and now looking back, it was oh so obvious. No, I'm not making this up. My entire childhood, our mailbox in front of our house had the letters M-A-L-E painted on the side of it. And by the time I was in the 11th grade, I was like, that ain't right. That M's supposed to be capitalized, isn't it? That is a true story. When I was in the 3rd grade, my uncle did that as a joke, and nobody got it.
I've talked about it all week, and he's finally here. Welcome to the Mark White Show, Jeff Foxworthy.
Thank you, Mark White. How are you?
I am doing great. You didn't realize you now have hit the big time coming on the Mark White Show.
Well, when I started my career, I all I wanted to do was be on Johnny Carson. After I did that, they said, well, what's next for you? And I said, well, if I could ever get on the Mark White Show, I'd go ahead and shut the whole thing down after that.
Well, I tell you, the biggest part about that is you're following Swap and Shop.
I love Swap and Shop. Made it to the top of Mount Everest. I got a tiny little tear in my eye.
Tell you also, in the next couple of segments, I will have a restaurant called Dumps Like a Truck.
That is a great name.
I believe your daughter has eaten there down in Auburn, Alabama.
She probably has. That is beautiful.
They make Asian dumplings, and then they take part of the proceeds from the restaurant and they donate it to third world countries where kids need shoes. These kids are literally going through the trash to find things, and they provide shoes to these children. So it's a very worthy cause and a very unique name at that.
Yeah, and you don't forget the name of that restaurant. See, that's how easy it is to do something good.
Of course, as we talked about, the Mark White Show is about trying to recognize people who are making a difference. And what I hope is it encourages and inspires others to make a difference themselves, because, you know, we've got one life to live and we have opportunities all around us if we just open our eyes and look for those things to do each day. And we can always be doing things for others.
I was telling somebody that yesterday. I said, look, here's the deal. I said, this isn't like NASCAR. I said, you get one lap around the track. It's not like you can go through life and go, all right, here's what I'm going to do next time. I said, you get one lap, and you got to make it count, and you got to think about those things.
We get caught up in our own problems and things that are happening in our lives, and we get so worried when we look around and we see other families and what they're going through. I believe if we'll do that, we gain a greater appreciation of what we actually do have in our life.
Well, Mark, I've gotten where the last year or so, when I walk out on stage, I tell people this, but I try to remind myself every night right before I walk out on stage that every single person I'm going to be looking at that night is going through a struggle. It might be financial, it might be physical, it might be emotional. Somebody you love may have done something stupid, but everybody that I see from that stage is going through a struggle. And I tell the audience, everybody you see on stage is going through a struggle. And so not knowing what people are going through, it's just always a constant reminder to me. Have grace with people. You know, you don't know the struggle that they're going through. And for my job, I always say, to me, I don't think laughter makes the struggle go away, but I do think laughter is a little bit like that release valve that keeps the boiler from exploding.
Absolutely.
And so, that ability to say, okay, just here for the next hour and a half, we're not going to think about the struggle. We're just going to let some of this tension go, and we're going to laugh. And that's what that is all about. But, in regards to what you do, in my whole life, I've kind of tried to hammer this into my kids. I said, when you sit back and you look at people that you admire, when you look at somebody and go, man, I think that's how I want to do life. This person is doing life the right way. I said, not one of those people is a self-focused person. Because in my life, I've never met anybody that was self-focused that was a happy person. the people that you look at and you admire them and you think, man, that's how I want to do life. Every one of them is others focused. They tend to think about the needs and of others more than they think about what it is they want for themselves. And that's how you start to make a difference, is when you kind of put what you want behind what it is that other people around you need.
Very true. And I started my career as a police officer, and I was a young guy. The families that I encountered, the individuals that I encountered, I always wanted to try to do more. Of course, this show has now given me an opportunity to try to do that for people. If we reach one person and that one person decides that they want to help that family, what have we just done? We've made an impact.
Yeah, you have. Yeah, you've certainly made an impact in one person's life, and that's how you change the world. You don't, it's like eating an elephant. You don't do it all at once. You do it a bite at a time. Telling a guy that yesterday, a friend of mine, and he got kind of in a jam, and I was trying to help walk with him through it, and I said, look, here's the deal. You have a need, and I have the ability to help you with that need. Now, tomorrow it may be the other way around, but that's what we do for each other, and I think that's what God meant when he said, love your neighbor as yourself. It's like, today I have the ability to help you. Tomorrow I may be the one that needs help, but it's being aware of those things. And to me, that's the first step, is being aware of those things, to not just not see the person in front of you at the checkout counter, but really see them, really understand, hey, they got a life too, just like you do. They got things they worry about just like you do. Some people just saying hello to them and asking, how's your day going, is a big deal. That there's somebody out there that cares. Somebody's actually seeing me and hearing me.
Tell me about some people that have made an impact on your life, Jeff.
Well, there's several. My folks got divorced when I was young. My mom, who we're lucky to still have around, and she's doing good. But it's funny. My granddaddy used to tell me when I was little, we'd be at a family function, and he'd nudge me and he'd point to my mama. He goes, "That's a good girl right there," and she is. I mean, my mom was the one that faith kind of always guided her life. She never had a whole lot, but sometimes I look at my life and say, hey, the reason I'm here is because that woman prayed for me every week. I did a bunch of stupid stuff, and I probably shouldn't be here.
While we weren't praying for ourselves, right?
No. And so, but my mom is just innately good and innately kind and innately faithful. I mean, her faith is almost like the faith of a child. It's just, she just absolutely believes it and doesn't question it. That's what it is. And so I got that from her. My dad's sister, my Aunt Rose, I mean, because my life was a little crazy, because I had a mom that, didn't drink, didn't smoke, didn't cuss, went to church 5 times a week, and I had a daddy that did the exact opposite.
Yep.
Was married 6 times, drank, smoked, cussed, ran around. And so for a kid, you're in the middle of that. You're like a game of Pong. You don't know which side you belong on.
Yes, I understand.
But my dad's sister was, she was a stabilizing force in all of that. And still to this day, when I need wise counsel, that's who I go to, is my Aunt Rose, who's 83 years old. But she's just wise. Just, she grew up in a little country town and ended up becoming a professor of oncology nursing for children. I mean, just a brilliant woman. So my granddaddy was an influence. My granddaddy was one of those guys that didn't say a whole lot, but he took me with him everywhere he went. And I look back, because he loved to fish. He was a fireman, so he'd work 24 hours. He'd have 48 off. He was fishing a good part of that 48, and he'd take me with him. Well, he was a serious fisherman, and I look back now as an adult. I wasn't good at it. I'm always throwing my lure in the tree or getting hooked up. But he never said a word. He just took me with him. So he wasn't one of those guys that said, I loved you. He just showed it in the way that he didn't have to say it. You just knew that he loved you.
You grew up in the home of Chick-fil-A and Truett Cathy and
Truett Cathy. The little town I grew up in was a town called Hapeville, H-A-P-E, Hapeville, Georgia, and that's where Chick-fil-A began. That's where the first Chick-fil-A was. Oh, the Dwarf House. There was a guy from Hapeville named Doug Davis that was an animator on Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. So in the Dwarf House, they had a little painting, like a little mural on the wall of the cave, and I guess Doug Davis had painted the Seven Dwarfs going in and out of the cave, and that was part of the appeal of going to the Dwarf House, was you got to see the little, there's just little pieces of wood with them painted on it. And so that's probably the origin of that name, but it was, Chick-fil-A, but we just called it the Dwarf House.
Well, my connection to Truett Cathy, believe it or not, Jeff, I had a tortilla factory. I had a Mexican restaurant, and I read about Truett. How did you do it? Truett, read his book, and I sent him a letter and some tortilla chips that I made. I had them in grocery stores around the area. He signed a book for me and sent a nice letter. I was going to try to get to meet him. Of course, he passed away, but I always appreciated his background, and being an entrepreneur myself, watching his early beginnings, reading about them and understanding what it took to make the restaurant that it is, but they don't see the hard work that went into it to get it started.
When I was a kid, now this is not before they were this is before they were nationwide. This is before everybody in the country knew who Chick-fil-A was. They had one restaurant, and my mother used to tell me when I was little, she said, you have no idea what the Cathys do because they don't talk about it. She said, but they put kids that can't go to college through college. And it was just very quiet and under the radar. But even back then, when they had one restaurant, they were doing that. And so, years later, when I got in that position, I started doing that as I found people in my life, kids that really needed an opportunity to do that. And I told Mr. Cathy that, late in his life, I said, you have no idea the influence that you were on me. I said, but, when I got in a position to help people out, I followed your lead.
And you were even asked to entertain at his birthday, if I'm not mistaken.
I got to host his 90th birthday party.
That is cool.
He tell me, he said, and let me tell you what was so funny. When I was a little kid, Mr. Cathy, whenever you ran into him, he always had a thing for a free Chick-fil-A in his coat pocket. He'd give you one. Well, I grew up with a dirt yard. A free Chick-fil-A was a big deal. That was like Willy Wonka's gold ticket.
Right.
And so when I'm hosting his 90th birthday party, he pulls me aside. And he's like, I really appreciate you doing this. And he reached in his pocket to give me a free chick. And I said, Mr. Cathy, I can buy one now. It's okay. You don't have to do that. But, I remember when they had like their second or third store. First time they went in a mall. They went in a little mall on the south side of Atlanta called Greenbrier Mall. And everybody was going, well, I bet they'll be open on Sunday now. Because the mall, that Sunday's a big day at the mall. And I said, I bet they won't. And weren't. And then here you go 4 decades later when they go into Mercedes-Benz Stadium and they have a restaurant. And people are going, well, Mercedes-Benz won't let them be closed on Sunday. I said, you watch. And, and so he was always true to his principles. He never varied from that. And now his two sons, Dan and Bubba, don't vary from that. And, people will say a lot, well, there ain't no telling how successful they could be if they were open on Sunday. No, it's the exact opposite.
Right.
They're successful because they honored God with the way they conducted their business.
I think with the Super Bowl coming up, they're going to be closed again.
They're closed on Super Bowl Sunday.
I want to take just a minute to show some appreciation to some people who represent you. And I just want to thank Maggie. You have a great person in Maggie that's helping you out. And she understood what my show was about. And then, of course, Outback Concerts. great people. I called them up and asked them about some tickets. I took the liberty of throwing in a 3-night stay at your house with chores included.
Sure, and meals. I hope you said meals too.
Breakfast is it not or what?
Yes. Well, 3 days. Yeah, you get 9 hot meals.
3 hots and a cot.
Mm-hmm.
Got it. Now, I want to talk a little bit about in Atlanta, Georgia, helping some guys through a Bible study and what that means to you.
Well, forever, and it was probably because of the influence of my Aunt Rose. I did stuff with kids with cancer. I did a ton of stuff with Camp Sunshine. My wife, Greg, and it's a girl. That's Greg. She just has a weird name. But we were chairman of the fundraising things for the Duke Children's Hospital. My brother played football at Duke, and that's how we got involved there. But the Children's Hospital is kind of like St. Jude's. They don't turn people away based on ability to pay, which I just always loved. And so we did their fundraising for about 20 years, and I always thought, well, that's my thing, and I'm a little bit ashamed of it. But now, but the way that I dealt with people that were homeless was I'd roll down the window and give them a few bucks so they'd go away.
Right.
And I had a guy one day. I met a guy, and he worked at the Atlanta Mission, which is the big homeless shelter in downtown Atlanta. I just liked him. We kind of hit it off. He invited me down to lunch, and I thought as he invited me, and I guess that's the position I'm in. But I thought, well, he wants something. He wants me to do a concert and give them the money, or he wants me to record their radio commercials, or he wants something.
He has a radio show and he wants you to come on, right?
Yes, yeah, or something like that. But anyway, I agreed, and I went down to meet him for lunch down at the shelter, and I had never ever done anything with homeless people, and I got down to the shelter, and the first person I met was this 21-year-old kid, and my first thought was, dang, dude, get a job. You're 21, you're healthy, get a job. Why are you on the streets? This is ridiculous. But I like to know people's stories. I guess that's what comedy is all about. And I asked him, I said, Jason, what's your story? And he said, it was me, my brother, my mom, and my dad. And he said, when I was 11 years old, my mom killed herself. He said, and then the next year, my brother killed himself, and it was just me and my dad. And my second year of college, my dad killed himself. And he said, I just got to the point I couldn't hurt anymore. So I just started smoking crack. Well, when you smoke crack, you're not employable. You can't go to school. You flunk out of school. You can't work. Obviously all his family's gone. So that's how you end up on the street. And I remember just sitting there looking at him going, dude, I would have started smoking crack too.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody in my family had killed themselves. And I understood, oh, wow, that's how somebody ends up on the street. And I went back and I had lunch a couple more times, and Josh Harrelson was the guy that worked there. And he said, hey, you keep asking me what it is I want you to do. He said, I'll tell you. He said, these guys have never done a small group Bible study. He said, I want you to lead one. And I started laughing. I said, there's 6.5 million people in Atlanta. There's got to be somebody more qualified to do this than me. And here's what I did, and this is the biggest encouragement for somebody out there listening. I didn't have to be the most qualified. All I did was I said, yes. I said, yeah, I'll do it. And there was a big learning curve on how to do it. But I did it. And in those early days, to get these guys to come, I had to stop at Chick-fil-A and buy chicken biscuits. That was kind of my draw to get them to come.
Well, that's a good draw.
It started off in a little group with me and 12 guys. 10 years later now, we've got 28 group leaders, and it's 350 homeless guys every Tuesday morning. Because I realized from that first kid, Jason, that and for so many people on the street, something bad happened to them. Something traumatic happened to them. Maybe might have been physical abuse, might have been abandonment, might have been sexual abuse, might have been, but something bad happened to them. And so, it started seeping into me. Hey, if you can ever help people understand that even though something bad happened, that they're loved, that they're, maybe you didn't have a daddy, but that love from that daddy and that blessing from that daddy that you crave, that's the way your Heavenly Father feels about you. He's there every day. He loves you every day. And if you could ever start to heal that hurt, maybe these people would have a chance of, getting their life back on the track.
Yes.
And through the 10 years that I've been doing this, it's not all of them, but there's a lot of guys that now have their own place again. They've been reunited with their family. They have a car. They have a job. And so, just kind of walking with them through some of those struggles, it helped them get their life back. Too, you don't have to be the best at it. You don't even have to know how I'm going to do this. I just said, yes, I'll do it. I'll do it. I got a buddy, Andy Stanley, that says, do for one what you wish you could do for everybody. So within your community, you don't have to fix everything, but there may be one person in your community that you come in contact with that you can do for them what you wish you could do for everybody.
And just do it.
And just do it. Yeah. And you'll figure it out. You don't have to be qualified.
Jeff Dyak had him on the show last week. David Hedrick needed a kidney and a fellow deputy. He's an SRO officer there in Georgia at Whitfield County. And Jeff donated his kidney to David. I
have one of my homeless guys that needs a kidney. And I offered him mine, and he started laughing. He goes, "No, Mr. Jeff, you have too many kidney stones. I don't want yours."
That's the type of thing I try to do, Jeff, is if somebody has a need like that, I try to put the word out.
Which is amazing. There used to be a DJ named Rhubarb Jones, and I would go on his show, and he was country music, but he was just a teddy bear. And while the songs were playing, people would call the show, and somebody would call and go, hey, Rhubarb, he said, I got a buddy that was in a bad wreck, and he needs a wheelchair, and he can't afford one. And Rhubarb would go on there and go, hey, I got a guy out there that needs a wheelchair. I know somebody got one. And I mean, as soon as he'd say that, the phone lines would start lighting up. Somebody go, hey, I got a wheelchair. I'll bring it down there. Where's it at? It's basic human nature to want to help people. And I don't know what it is that makes all of us, ignore it sometimes or don't respond to it. But I think that's basic human nature. And so, when somebody hears that and all they do is say, yes, hey, I have something that can help somebody else. But that's when human beings are their best, is when we do things like that. And we live in a time right now where, we're so divided and we yell at each other. But what we do right now is we magnify our differences, which are very small. I think no matter how apart you are politically, I think if you just sat people down and talked to them about what was important to them, I bet we'd all agree on 85% of the stuff. But instead of celebrating the 85%, we want to highlight the 15% and magnify our differences.
Jeff, I really appreciate you coming on the Mark White Show today, and I look forward. I'm actually going to come to the event February 10th at the Von Braun Civic Center in Huntsville to see you and John, and looking forward to that.
Well, don't throw anything. I know we got you some decent tickets, so don't throw anything. But
well, I don't have any tortillas anymore, so I can't throw those at you.
No, you can throw tortillas. I'm fine with tortillas. I like tortillas.
I appreciate you coming on, Jeff.
You got it. All right.
All right. Thanks, buddy.
Have a good day.
And that was Mr. Jeff Foxworthy. You can catch Jeff and John Christ at the Von Braun Civic Center February 10th at 7 o'clock. You can get your tickets at Ticketmaster.com. You can also go to VonBraunCenter.com and find your tickets for Jeff and John. Looking forward to that special event. And again, I appreciate Jeff Foxworthy for joining me. Of course, the Mark White Show is about recognizing difference makers and encouraging and inspiring others. And I hope that that interview did just that. Don't go away, because when we come back, we're going to have Mr. Brett Tutor. Brett is a carpenter with TLC's Trading Spaces, among many other things. And we're going to talk to Brett. He will be at the Birmingham Home Show February 15th through 17th. So I'm going to be talking to Brett when we come back. You are listening to the Mark White Show, and I'm your host, Mark White.
Experience the difference at Athens Bible School. The vision and purpose is to provide each student a quality education in a Christ-centered environment to develop the whole person spiritually, mentally, physically, and socially in a safe and supportive process of your loan. You can call me at 256-206-1422, or you can email me at michaelbdornay@gmail.com. That's MICHAELBDORNE. I look forward to hearing from you soon. Traditions of Athens is independent living and assisted living. Maintenance-free, carefree living at its best. Located at 22171 Traditions Way in Athens, Alabama. You have to see it to believe it. Check them out at traditionsofathens.com or give them a call at 256-444-3255. Thompson Roofing and Construction is a locally owned family business serving the North Alabama and Southern Tennessee area. They are a Better Business Bureau A+ member since 2011 and a GAF Master Elite contractor. Give them a call at 256-952-3309 or check them out on the web at 256roofing.com. They offer free inspections. Thompson Roofing and Construction. Every pro on your team wants to work with a Husqvarna, and who can blame them? Husqvarna products are powerful, ergonomic, and packed with innovation so your crew can work quickly and safely in any environment. And now we're making it easier than ever to put a Husqvarna in their hands with our cost-saving fleet program, where commercial customers can save up to 20% on new equipment purchases. If you want more Husqvarnas in their hands and more money in your pocket, get all your new equipment through the Husqvarna fleet program. You'll get professional results and the power to save. Visit Green's Dependable at 15220A Highway 43, Russell, Alabama, or give them a call at 256-331-023. Find them on Facebook at Green's Dependable Hardware. Athens Bible School is accredited by Advanced Ed, member of Alabama High School Athletic Association, the National Alliance of Concurrent Enrollment Partnerships, and is a satellite campus of Calhoun Community College. For more information, call 256-232-3525 or visit our website at athensbibleschool.org. Athens Bible School. There are people in this country who work hard every day, not for fame or fortune, do they? People come, people go. Some people die young, some people grow old. Some people live like they're not dying. Some people laugh like they're through crying. Firefly, where do you go in the daylight? When the world doesn't see your shine, we only see you when we can see fine.
Brett Tutor of Austin, Texas, a carpenter on TLC's Trading Spaces. That song was Firefly, and you can find that at bretttutor.com. Great job, Brett.
Yeah, my mom says I need to pick a career.
Well, Brett, of course, you're going to be in Birmingham February 15th through 17th at the Birmingham Jefferson Civic Center for the Birmingham Home Show. How in the world did you get recognized by TLC?
Oh, it was so strange. I started out doing stunt work in Texas, and then I started hosting a small show about new homes, the benefits of buying a new house versus an old home. In Texas, just a small local thing. I was doing home inspections in Austin at the time. And then I got asked to be on a Discovery Channel show. And then I somehow through that, a producer for Trading Spaces got a hold of me. And I had one meeting with Trading Spaces, and then it was game on.
What kind of experience has it been for you to do that? I mean, before it happened, did you envision yourself doing something like Trading Spaces?
No, not really. At a stage in life where I was kind of saying yes to every opportunity, and I was doing home inspections in Austin, and it kind of gave me the freedom of schedule to be able to say yes to some stuff. And no, it's not something I really thought was going to happen. It just kind of one thing kind of led to another, and it's just life is kind of unfolding in some crazy way.
Yes, and talking about unfolding, you've done a lot of humanitarian relief. You started out doing some things, Kenya, Africa, volunteering with orphanages and helping with security and logistics, and spending time in Liberia. You said it was life-changing and gave you a global perspective and inspired you to commit to help those in need. Tell us about Off the Grid International, how you came to be founder of that organization.
Yeah, well, I think it goes back to when I was in Africa. I was from a small town in Texas, and then I got to go to Kenya, Africa for a summer when I was 18 or 19. And I remember I spent a summer in these slums, and it just completely changed my life. And I had never seen anything at quite that magnitude. And for people, and especially the kids going out without basic needs. And I knew that. So once you see that, you want to eventually do something about it. And I didn't have a college education. I didn't have a whole lot of things to offer other than carpentry experience. And that's what we did. And I knew one day I'd want to do something like that. And so about 3 years ago, I founded Off the Grid International, and we build clean water systems and sanitation systems alongside the Peace Corps. We just went to a couple of years ago, went to Panama. And we built a birthing house for some women in some remote communities out in the jungle. We built a rainwater system and a septic system with a bathroom in the middle of the jungle. So it was a lot of fun, and hopefully we started doing a lot more of that stuff.
Yeah, and one of the things I noticed you said about not having a college degree, but using your experience as a carpenter. There are a lot of young people right now who may not necessarily go to college, but we hear a lot lately about trades and opportunities that young people might have. How would you encourage somebody, that's not necessarily looking at college, but maybe opening doors to the possibility of a trade?
I couldn't possibly encourage it enough. And you nailed it right on the head. There is such a need for trades right now. There's just not a whole lot of good men and women that are doing trades anymore. And I think that if you're young and you're not sure what you want to do yet, which was my case to a T, everybody's different. I don't ever want to tell anybody not to go to school, but at the same time, the best decision of my life was probably not taking out student loans and getting in debt to get a degree in something that, one, I didn't probably really want to do, and two, I was too young. I think sometimes when we make the most important decisions of our lives, we're kind of the dumbest when we're about 18.
You're exactly right.
Figuring stuff out, and to go out and travel and to go experience the world, that's the only way you're going to know what you want to do. It's not just confined to a couple of majors of college. And even if you do get that degree, it's not the same as it used to be in all situations. And I do think that a lot of people shy away from the trades, and maybe not everybody dreams of that blue collar life, but there's a lot of people I've seen at a young age. I remember I was doing home inspections and septic inspections. And at the time I was 25, and one of my best friends who graduated with an MBA, master's in business, and he wasn't able to get a job. And I was making a really good living, completely working for myself, creating my own hours, had no student loan debt. And, it's not the right path for everybody, but if you'll always have a job, there will always be work. And we need people to know how to weld and to do carpentry work. And there's electricians, there's home inspectors, there's rainwater systems, solar panels. I mean, it goes on and on and on. So find something that you're passionate about. And if you're not sure what you want to do, I would just say travel as much as you can and go learn a trade and go experience the world, get some years behind you and go have a lot of fun. And I think along that path, you'll eventually find something you want to devote your time to. And, but with trades, it leaves that opportunity to, work for yourself if you want to, and then you can grow your own business, or it can just be part-time work, or you pursue something else. or maybe go back to school, or you know, you never know. It could lead to being on TV, which is what happened in my case.
Well, speaking of traveling and seeing the world, we have a unique connection, Brett. You went from Austin to Bend, Oregon to be a whitewater rafting and rock climbing guide. Well, I went to Bend, Oregon to learn how to make tortillas. There was a guy named Mario Huerta, and I found him through the internet, and he let me and my wife come up to Bend, Oregon, and for 8 days we worked in his tortilla factory, and he showed me how to make tortillas, and we came down and started our tortilla factory in Athens, Alabama.
How fun is that? I would love to go learn how to make tortillas. I bet that was a cool experience. I love Bend, Oregon. That's one of my favorite places on the planet.
Hey, mine too. Now we enjoyed every minute there in Bend, and I loved the experience of watching the process of tortillas being made. And we jumped into it, and my wife was stacking tortillas, and I was mixing dough, and we worked ourselves to the bone trying to build a business, a unique business in Alabama.
I bet. Well, congratulations. That's what a fun career to.
There are plenty of ways for young people to find opportunities outside of college. And like you said, it's not to say that some people aren't meant for college and to go. I would encourage them. That's the decision they need to make. But there's sometimes don't feel hopeless because you don't go to college.
Oh, 100%. Some of the most successful people I know never went to college.
Yes, I agree. And let's talk a little bit about more off the grid international and maybe how people can be a part of that effort, because some people may be listening right now and think, I would like to be a part of something, and you may have the answer, Brett.
I would, yeah. So if I think finding a nonprofit and going and volunteering with a nonprofit or some other kind of NGO, especially when you're young, I think is so important. So important. I can't even possibly encourage people enough to do that. I think if you haven't got to travel much and you got to haven't really get outside the bubble where you come from, going with a nonprofit is a really unique way to experience the world and to help and to give back. And I think you grow so much as a person. We're happy to bring in volunteers. We're going to try to do another trip at the end of this year, so people can always go to the website, otgi.org, and reach out to me and our team through there. But I would say, again, that was exactly my case. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I just know I wanted to do something amazing, and I didn't have any other reference because I'd never been anywhere. I'd never really done anything. So my mission at the time was to go do as much as I could, to see as much as I could. And one of those things is just trying to become a happy, whole, healthy person. And I don't think anybody's really a whole, healthy person unless they found some kind of way to give back. And this is my way. And if and the younger you can get started, the better.
Let me ask you, Brett, have you been to Alabama before?
I have been to Alabama. Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, and of course, you're going to be at the Birmingham Jefferson Civic Center, February 15th through 17th at the Birmingham Home Show. I'm sure you're looking forward to it. I'm going to tell you, of course, there's a lot of friendly people here in Alabama, and they'll be excited to see you.
It's going to be a lot of fun. Yeah, if you guys want to come out, the Birmingham Home and Garden Show in February, and I'll be there for 3 days. And it's really, really fun to come out and look at all these different booths and vendors and a lot of cool stuff, a lot of really great tips and ideas and inspiration, maybe to do some stuff on your own home.
My show is all about recognizing people making a difference in our communities and trying to encourage and inspire others to make a difference themselves. So what we try to do here, of course, ties into what you're trying to do through Off the Grid International. And I appreciate you stepping up to the plate to do that good work.
Well, I appreciate you, appreciate the time, and I appreciate anybody listening and anybody out there trying to do a little good in the world.
Brett is a carpenter with TLC's hit show Trading Spaces. Great talking to you, Brett.
Dude, thanks for having me.
And if you would like to go to the Birmingham Home Show February 15th through 17th, go to birminghamhomeshow.com and get your tickets. All right, folks, we've had Jeff Foxworthy. We've had Brett Tutor with TLC's Trading Spaces. Who else can we have on the show? Well, how about Whitley Dykes? Whitley Dykes owns Dumps Like a Truck down in Auburn, Alabama, and he's doing pretty well for himself along with his wife. Just had a baby. We're excited about having Whitley on the program when we come back. Very exciting show. I hope you'll stick with me. You are listening to The Mark White Show, and I'm your host, Mark White.
Hey, Mark. Hi, what's up, man? Trying to wake up. All right, testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3.
Testing 1 2 3.
Testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3.
Testing 1 2 3.
Testing 1 2 3.
Keep going.
Testing 1 2 3.
Testing 1 2 3.
Testing 1 2 3. Okay. How's that?
Little more. He's telling me a little more, Whitley.
Oh, testing. Testing 1 2 3.
Testing 1 2 3.
2 3. Yeah.
Okay. I guess he was really liking the way you do that, Whitley. So he no, we have to get the sounds balanced. So
Oh, okay.
I think we're good.
Okay. I hope so. I'm in the nursery right now. No baby though.
Okay, well, all right. We're in a commercial break, and we'll be back on the air in probably about 2 minutes, I think.
Okay.
And then we'll probably have about 13 minutes to talk. And like I said, we'll break it into 2 parts.
Okay. Sweet. How'd it go this morning?
Oh, it went great.
I tried to tune in a little bit here and there, but I didn't sleep at all last night. Baby was just up crying all night. So
No, you'll be you're gonna be.
I really thank you for having me on. It'll be fun. It'll be real fun. You can hear me okay though.
I can.
I've got T-Mobile now, so
I'm not hearing anything, Ken.
what's that?
Are we off the air, Ken? I'm not hearing anything through the. Oh, hang on a minute.
Okay.
Something seems like it's not right, Ken.
You think it's on my end or your end?
No, it's on my end. There's something it's not feeding through. I'm not hearing it.
Okay.
Maybe he's hearing it up front. You're hearing it up front, okay? Yeah, because nothing's. I'm not gonna know when my break comes up. I was hearing it up until. I can't tell when my break's up. When we're ready.
I know what it is. Hang on a second.
Okay. I don't know. Hopefully we're not on the air yet. Yeah, I can hear it now. That's the only way I know when my show comes back on. All right. I couldn't hear a thing. All right, here we go, buddy.
All right.
And we are back. I have with me Mr. Whitley Dykes. He is the owner of Dumps Like a Truck. But first, I want to say congratulations to you and your wife. You just had a new little girl. So congratulations. You said you're live from the nursery.
Oh yeah, live from the nursery. Yes, Lord have mercy. Live from the nursery. Yeah, we had a baby about a week ago. Her name's Odea Arrow Dykes. And we're just so excited to have her. But she did keep us up all night last night. So I might have a little brain fog today, but it's all good. I'm here. I'm available.
That'll be okay. And, a lot of people are interested in hearing about Dumps Like a Truck. And Jeff Foxworthy, he found that name to be a very good one. So congratulations on coming up with a name that Jeff Foxworthy actually liked.
I mean, I tell old Jeff I appreciate it. Whenever we thought about the name of the truck, I was like, baby, that's gold. I was like, we got to move on that fast. I know we're the only dumpling truck in town, but you know what I mean? Like when you know that you struck gold, you know.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, and the thing about it is you're down there in Auburn, Alabama, highly concentrated area of students. And I know that you've had some folks just piling in to your restaurant. And I think that's really great.
Yeah, it's been amazing. We originally started the truck when I realized how many Chinese students were actually here, because I worked after I moved back from China. I lived in China for about 8 years, and after I moved back, I got a job at the university, and I was an international student advisor, and I saw so many Chinese students. And so when I lived in China, I would go to like Starbucks. The Starbucks would remind me of home, the smell, the feel, and everything. And what we were wanting to do, my wife and I, being Chinese, was wanting to provide a place, or at least a food cuisine, that would remind students of home. We didn't know that the truck would take off, and then we'd be able to open a restaurant that caters to the Chinese students, but that the people like of Auburn, Alabama, the locals, would actually flock to it and really latch on like they have. It's been really incredible to see.
Well, and I'll tell you, my friend Brad Hartzell shared a picture from inside the restaurant, and that's what put Dumps Like a Truck on my radar. And of course, like we talked about, me being an entrepreneur myself, I was always trying to find new ways to reach out and to get my business name recognized. And I have a radio show now and I can use it. And so I thought, well, why not give Whitley Dykes some airtime on the Mark White Show?
Man, that means a lot. That means a lot to us. And anytime we have an opportunity to speak, whether it's a podcast or a radio show, we're wanting to do it. And it's not so much for the exposure of us as a business or entrepreneurs, but more so for the cause that we have attached, because we know that the more people who know about us, the more people, the kids that we help overseas and whatnot, are going to be, they know about them, and they're going to be able to have more access to care.
And that's a perfect segue, because when we come back, we will talk about what your restaurant is trying to do in third world countries. And I'm speaking with Whitley Dykes. He is the owner of Dumps Like a Truck in Auburn, Alabama. And when we come back, we're going to have the Mary Faye Hedrick Good Deed segment, and we're going to talk about a very special effort of Dumps Like a Truck. So I hope you'll stick with me. You are listening to the Mark White Show, and I'm your host, Mark White. Good job, Whitley.
Hey, thanks, man. Thanks. I didn't say
Still talking to Mr. Whitley Dykes, owner of Dumps Like a Truck in Auburn, Alabama, and we're going to talk about a special effort that he does through the restaurant. So, Whitley, if you would share what Dumps Like a Truck does in third world countries.
So the main idea that when we first started the truck, we didn't want to just have a business that was beneficial to ourselves. We're very ministry driven and mission minded in what we do. And this goes back to my days living in China. And so with the name Dumps Like a Truck, we wanted it to have, double meaning. And one was, yes, we're going to serve dumplings, but we're also going to serve kids who actually live they live and scavenge for survival in third world dumps. And so the original idea, if you know, the Dumps Like a Truck is a line from the song, the Thong Song from Cisco way back when. And so the original idea was to actually put thong sandals on the feet of kids who live and scavenge for survival over there, because if they get a cut on their feet, then they could, if they don't have access to medical care, it could really turn out bad for them. But when we looked at the problem, we're like, you know what, the thong sandals might be a Band-Aid, but it doesn't reach the root of the problem, which is perpetual poverty. So how can we actually dive into the dumps and partner with other local organizations and churches who are already on the ground over there and help alleviate this and help get them out of this? I don't just want them to stay there. I want them to be empowered to make a difference in their own setting, but also to move on beyond that. And so we partnered with the organization called Empowering Young Warriors Asia. And what they do is that there's this guy named Thomas Tam, a good friend of mine. He lives there, he stays there, and it's basically a disciple-making program where they teach these kids love for country and righteousness. They train them up in righteousness and how to be a servant and not to let their circumstances of living in these dumps define them, but instead to see the beauty of life and to actually learn how to serve others who may even be worse off than them or who may be in a situation like them. So they're actually being trained to be the light of Christ in the dumps, despite whether or not their circumstance changes, right? And so the money that we send and that we give to them gets them an education, gets them to school, so that by the time that they're going through this program, the disciple program, and by the time they actually get the education, they already know what it means to give back and to be a person of purpose. And so now with an education, they're actually empowered to sow more effectively into that very community and, go and do great things themselves. So,
well, and we have a lot of small businesses around us, and we have a lot of small businesses who do some great community work and try to reach out and help through their business. If a business is considering that, how would you encourage them to find a way to make a difference themselves through their business?
Oh man, it doesn't even have to be a specific theme. I would encourage everybody to do that, because whenever you give back and you live for something bigger than yourself, something inside of you comes alive. Something in your DNA is sparked, and you come alive, and your life becomes way more fulfilling anyway. But I think with the opening of the store, we call it the Irritable Bao, because we serve bao. It's the Chinese breakfast. Now that we have a physical location, we're wanting to draw the community in and actually go do community service projects, because we don't want to be people with just a global, mindset, but also with a local. We want to impact the ground where we're at right here, right now. And so we use all of our cash tips that come in through that place to actually sow back into the local community, not through other organizations, but through families. Like if this family can't buy groceries or can't pay their power bill or can't buy Christmas, like we will use that money to sow into them. And so that way we're making a personal touch and actually making a difference in the community. So there's many different routes that you could take, but it just so happens that ours is twofold. One is local and one is over in the dumps.
Well, Whitley, tell folks how they can find what you're doing on the web, through social media, how they can get in contact with you.
Our whole business was built on social media and word of mouth. And we will have a nonprofit later this year, and we'll have a website attached to that. But right now, Facebook, just look up Dumps Like a Truck, or Instagram, it's at Dumps Like a Truck _food truck. That's the best way to find us.
Excellent. Whitley Dykes, man, I appreciate you joining the Mark White Show this morning.
Man, I'm honored. I'm so honored. Thank you so much for having me.
It's been an outstanding show, and we have had Jeff Foxworthy, Brett Tutor with TLC's Trading Spaces, and Whitley Dykes with Dumps Like a Truck in Auburn, Alabama. Check him out. Check out Jeff Foxworthy. Go to the vonbrauncenter.com and get your ticket.